Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make chocolate mousse. Hey Sugar Spun bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. Today we are making a classic chocolate mousse. This is a French recipe, and I am sticking to the traditional method of making it, which means I am using raw eggs. This does mean that today's recipe will not be appropriate for everybody, especially if you are pregnant. It's not advised that you consume raw eggs, but since I got so much feedback when I shared my tiramisu recipe and so many people wanted to see that one made with raw eggs, I listened to your feedback and today's recipe is made the traditional raw egg way. Now for today's recipe, we're going to start with 6 ounces of chocolate. I recommend you use a quality bar of chocolate if you don't want to use chocolate chips for today's recipe. And we are going to finely chop this chocolate. I like to use a large knife to do this and just sort of go over it in a mincing fashion just to get it nicely broken up. All right, now we'll add this to a mixing bowl. This is a microwave safe mixing bowl. And I'm also going to add 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I have this in 4 pieces, as you can see. We'll take this over to the microwave where we're going to heat it for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, we're going to give it a nice stir, and then we're going to return this to the microwave, heating it in 15-second intervals until the chocolate and butter are completely melted and until the mixture is nice and smooth. Now for today's recipe, you can add a pinch of espresso powder if you'd like in order to just deepen that rich chocolate flavor. I'd say about 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon. I'm not going to be doing that today. I'm actually out of espresso powder, but if you were using it, you would stir that in right here. Then we're just going to set this chocolate aside and we're going to need another mixing bowl. Now, technically we really need 2 mixing bowls, and that's because we're going to be dividing our eggs into the whites and the yolks. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack my egg, and the easiest way that I found to separate the white from the yolk is just to pass that egg back and forth. We're passing the yolk back and forth from one half of the shell to the other, and we're just letting that white fall through into this small bowl that I have here. Then we'll drop our egg yolk in one of the bowls, and we'll take that egg white and we'll place it in the other one. Now we're using 5 large eggs for today's recipe. We'll just go ahead and crack all of them and separate them. Okay, so we don't need our egg whites just now, so now that we have them all separated, we're going to set them aside. We're just gonna be focusing on our egg yolks. Now, for today's recipe, I have a total of 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. We're just gonna measure out about a tablespoon of this and add this in with the egg yolks. And we're also going to be adding just 1/8 teaspoon of table salt and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. All right, now grab yourself a whisk and we are going to vigorously whisk this mixture for about 30 seconds. We wanna go ahead and whisk everything until the mixture is lightened in color and slightly thickened. All right, this is looking pretty good. It's just very slightly thickened. You should begin to feel a subtle amount of resistance when you're whipping your whisk through there. So now let's grab our chocolate mixture and we're going to gradually add this back into our egg yolk mixture. I like to do this in about 3 parts. After each addition, we're just going to whisk everything together because we want these ingredients to be really well combined. All right, now we can set this mixture aside and let's go back to our egg whites. You are also going to want to grab yourself an electric hand mixer for this recipe. Of course, you could use a stand mixer. But today I'm just going to be using my hand mixer. Now we're just going to first beat our egg whites until they're nice and foamy. This is only gonna take a couple seconds. All right, now don't forget that we still have 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar left. We are going to gradually increase our mixer speed to high, and we're going to add that sugar about 1/2 tablespoon at a time. Now, after we add each 1/2 tablespoon, approximately, we're going to beat this mixture on high speed for about 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. And we'll just repeat this until all of the sugar has been added. Now, what we want to do is we want to whip these egg whites to stiff peaks, and that's another reason I recommend using an electric mixer, because while this could be done by hand, it's going to be quite an arm workout. So once you've added all of your sugar, you may not be quite at stiff peaks yet, so we're just going to go ahead and keep on whisking. All right, now let's take a look at this. So if you look at my beaters, I have sort of peaks here. Let's scrape the bowl. So we're pretty close to stiff peaks. Technically, we have achieved some stiff peaks, but at the bottom of the bowl, things are still a little bit liquidy, so I'm gonna go a little bit further. All right, now after a couple more seconds, let's take another look. And yeah, you can see that the mixture is a lot thicker now. It's just very full. We have stiff peaks here. The mixture is very stiff. So this is what yours should look like at this point. Now we're gonna go ahead and grab that chocolate mixture and we're going to give this another stir. Now you'll probably notice that this mixture has thickened quite a bit while it's been sitting. It's even kind of thick before it's had any time to sit. What we're going to be doing now is we want to incorporate these light, fluffy egg whites into the chocolate mixture, but we don't want to totally make all of that air that we added into the egg whites collapse. We want to keep this mixture nice and fluffy because chocolate mousse should be nice and fluffy. So we're going to do something that's sort of like tempering. We're going to take a spoonful of our egg white mixture. This is about half a cup. It doesn't have to be exact. And we're going to add that into our chocolate mixture. Now we're going to use a spatula and we're going to fold the egg whites into that chocolate mixture. Now once we are adding all of our egg whites, we're going to want to be very careful that we don't overmix. Here we can be a little bit more liberal because our goal is to make sure that the chocolate and this smaller amount of egg whites is well combined. We just want to stir it together so it's well incorporated. And before we go any further, you should have a chocolate mixture that flows nicely off of your spatula. So see, this looks pretty good. It's a nice flowy mixture and I know it's going to incorporate well with the egg whites. If your mixture doesn't look like this, just add another spoonful of egg whites. So now that I have a nice flowing kind of loose chocolate mixture, I'm going to add the rest of my egg whites to this. And now I'm going to very gently use my spatula to fold these ingredients together. I really recommend making sure you're scraping the sides and especially the bottom of the bowl while you're doing this, and use a gentle hand. If you overmix at this step, your chocolate mousse could end up not being light and fluffy. Now having a couple of streaks remaining is fine because we are not actually done mixing at this point. So you can see my batter is pretty uniform in color, but there is a little bit of white remaining. This is fine. I'm happy with how this looks, so I'm gonna set this aside. And now we're going to grab ourselves another mixing bowl. Yes, I know today's recipe does use a lot of bowls, but it is worth it, just trust me on this. Now to this bowl, we're going to add a half cup of cold heavy cream or heavy whipping cream. And we're going to grab our electric mixer again, and we are going to beat this, gradually turning our mixer up to high speed until we have stiff peaks again. This mixture won't be quite as voluminous and fluffy as our egg whites just because there's a smaller amount of cream, but you should be looking for the same thing where if you pull your mixer out of the cream, you have stiff peaks remaining. Let's take a look at this with a spatula. You can see that's nice and thick and fluffy. It's the consistency of Cool Whip. All right, now we're going to add this to our chocolate mixture. And again, we're going to gently fold everything together. Now you don't want to have any glaring streaks remaining, but with this recipe, I would really rather have you undermix it rather than overmix it. So just be gentle. All right, now immediately once we have everything mixed together, we're going to want to portion this into individual serving containers. Now, you can use any kind of dish you'd like, really. Ramekins are a nice choice. I like to use these cute little glasses. I can link to them because I know I've used these before and a lot of people have been interested in them. And we are just going to immediately portion everything out. Now, I feel like 2/3 cup is about a nice serving size, so I'm not filling these all the way to the top. And I'm going to get about 6 servings this way. And I only have 4 of these jars right now, so I'm going to portion some of the mousse into these cute little bowls that I have as well. And this one's gonna be mine, so I'm gonna fill that one to the top. I can handle it. Now chocolate mousse should sit for at least 2 to 3 hours before you serve it. I like to cover mine. I'm just gonna put these on a tray to make it easier to transport them. And I'm going to pop these in the fridge where they're gonna sit for 2 to 3 hours. All right, now just before your mousse is ready to serve, I highly recommend whipping up an easy batch of homemade whipped cream to serve on top of the mousse. Now this is super simple. We're just going to combine a half cup of cold heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Grab that electric mixer again, and we are just going to whip the cream again until we have stiff peaks, just like we did earlier, except this time we are technically making a chantilly cream because it's slightly sweetened. All right, this looks perfect. So we're just gonna go ahead and dollop this on top of our mousse servings. And now comes the best part. We are ready to dig in. Let's go ahead, and I want you to see how nice and light and fluffy this mousse looks. Look at that. And that is how you make classic chocolate mousse. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you tried this one out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is amazing.